Picture this. You are in a bookstore. You're browsing a wide collection of books, toys, and gifts around you. As you move around the store, you can smell the delicious coffee served in the in-store Starbucks. What bookstore did you imagine? Did you think of Barnes & Noble? You're not alone. Most Americans would have. Barnes & Noble is the largest book retailer in the United States, with around 600 retail outlets across 50 states, and a revenue of close to $4 billion as of 2019. The bookstore has been in existence for over 137 years. When the company started in 1886, it was called Arthur Hinds Company. Today, we will talk about the journey of this retail store from Arthur Hinds Company to Barnes & Noble and everything in between. The year is 1886, and Arthur Hinds Company has opened its doors as a small bookstore in New York City. Gilbert Clifford Noble joined the business as a clerk in the same year. Within 8 years of this, in 1894, he became a partner in the business, and the name of the store was changed to Hinds & Noble. In 1917, Arthur Hinds sold his share of the business to Mr. Noble. Hinds' departure allowed for the entry of William Barnes and the Barnes name. By 1930, the brand was fully owned by the Barnes family. In 1932, the company's flagship retail store was moved to New York's Fifth Avenue. Due to this iconic location and a wide range of books, this store became extremely popular. In the 1940s, Barnes & Noble made some impressive changes to the business. The store was one of the first businesses to introduce Muzak, soothing background music that relaxed customers and employees. Customers spent more time in the store and employees were happier. The store also became a hotspot for university students and academics. To better serve this section of customers, especially during peak season, Barnes & Noble used a new system. They ensured that each customer went through a pre-decided path. First, as the customers entered, a clerk would hand them a purchase slip. The next team would help them fill out the purchase slip with books of their choice. Collecting money for the books was another section's job, and finally, packaging was the work of the fourth team. This became a separate wing of the company called Barnes & Noble Education, which remains a big part of the business even today. The company continued to grow steadily until 1965, when John Barnes passed away. After his passing, the company fell into a period of chaos. Barnes & Noble had been reduced to a smaller setup, with only its flagship outlet and a dwindling wholesale business. After a brief ownership by Amtel, the brand was sold to Leonard Riggio for $1.2 million in 1971. It was under Mr. Riggio that Barnes & Noble enjoyed its best period. Mr. Riggio merged Barnes & Noble with his own thriving book-selling business, and within a few years, he had grown the Fifth Avenue store in New York City into the world's largest bookstore, with 150,000 textbooks. In 1974, Barnes & Noble became the first bookstore to advertise on television and offer a discount on books. An indication of how well Leonard Riggio understood the business came in 1975. He opened a bookstore that sold books by weight. Isn't that crazy? Well, it was crazy good. Customers flocked to the stores, buying books they may not even read. But why were they buying these books? To use them as decorative pieces for their houses. During the 70s and 80s, the primary focus was to gain new customers. Smaller discount stores were launched to cover more locations. Another innovation was its mail-order business. Sending books by post allowed the company to interact with customers countrywide. They published these books themselves to ensure that the books could be sold at reasonable prices. The fastest way to acquire new customers was through acquisitions. Barnes & Noble acquired multiple retail bookstore chains, including Bookmasters, Marlboro Books in 1979, and B. Dalton's in 1987. By 1990, Barnes & Noble was the second biggest bookseller in America. Starting in the 90s, the strategy shifted from smaller bookstores to superstores. Each superstore carried over 150,000 book titles. These stores had children's play areas, as well as cafeterias. The store layout was spacious and also provided ample seating for customers to relax and mingle. The premium setting, combined with the discounts, built a loyal customer base. Customers who were shopping at Barnes & Noble discount stores now frequented their superstores instead. They spent more time and money on these superstores. Following the success of the superstores, Barnes & Noble became a publicly traded company in 1993. In the same year, they entered into an agreement with Starbucks to open in-store outlets to enhance customer experience. By 1998, the company had more superstores than small outlets. But this is also when the company had to deal with the rise of the internet. In 1997, BarnesandNoble.com was launched. A lot of the early internet era for Barnes & Noble was defined by its rivalry with Amazon. To combat the Amazon threat, Barnes & Noble sold a 50% stake in the website business for $200 million. They used this money to improve inventory and delivery. Over 750,000 books were available on BarnesandNoble.com. However, in a few years, it became clear that Amazon was much quicker to adapt to customers' needs. It ensured quicker delivery and better prices. Amazon did to Barnes & Noble what Barnes & Noble had done to independent bookstores. Although by the mid-2000s, BarnesandNoble.com was doing $400 million in revenue, it was not profitable. They spent a lot of money trying to keep up with Amazon, but failed. By 2004, Amazon had managed to take up 70% of the market share. A bigger problem for Barnes & Noble was that the number of book readers in America was declining. By 2010, they closed all of B. Dalton stores and some of their own superstores. The company decided to diversify, entering the video game retail industry with the purchase of Babbage's Etc. and Funko. Along with this, they forayed into the music and movie retail business. The timing for this was the worst, as streaming was really catching on. The idea was doomed, and the company lost money. To combat the digital shift, and Amazon's Kindle, they launched a digital bookstore and Nook, an electronic book reader. Nook was launched on October 20, 2009. After a brief partnership with Samsung, it is now manufactured in collaboration with Lenovo. The product has only been moderately successful. Sales continued to fall starting in 2012. By 2014, Barnes & Noble had to shut down its flagship store. The revenue numbers continued to decline right till 2019. The company went through a tough period with 4 different CEOs in a space of 8 years. The lack of direction, changing visions, and the controversy regarding the dismissal of one of its CEOs on sexual harassment grounds only intensified problems for Barnes & Noble. They laid off a number of employees in 2018 just to keep the business afloat. Following this, the board decided to make the company available for sale. In August 2019, Elliott Investment Management acquired the company. James Daunt, a legend in the bookstore retail business, was appointed as the new CEO. He began by streamlining the business to focus more on its core, books. Freedom was given to store managers to decide the layout of the store. The idea was to tailor each store to its local demands. For example, a store where romantic novels and novels written by Black authors were more popular was allowed to display them at the most prominent location in the store. During the superstore phase of the 90s, Barnes & Noble achieved scalability by designing all locations as one and the same. That is, the same furniture, bookshelves, and even books. The new independent and personalized design managed to remind customers why they liked visiting bookstores in the first place. Superstores were being replaced by smaller stores that were arranged like mazes rather than organized supermarkets. These shifts ensured that for the first time in a decade, more Barnes & Noble stores were being opened rather than closed. This period had not been without any controversy, though. In 2019, Barnes & Noble participated in Black History Month by relaunching popular book titles with covers depicting the main characters from different races. Frankenstein was brown, and Dorothy could be seen on the cover of The Wizard of Oz in 5 different races. This went down as a hollow attempt to ride on the diversity wave, and there was significant backlash. The company put a stop to this idea. The post-pandemic era has seen an increase in customers wanting to experience the joys of bookstores, like meeting someone, taking book recommendations, and browsing the collection in the store. Barnes & Noble's may be on its way back to its iconic status. The next few years will be crucial for determining this. Companies that have remained in existence for long periods, like Barnes & Noble, inevitably deal with highs and lows. The company started as a steady business, grew into a behemoth, and then failed to adapt to changing times. The resurgence of the brand is in its early years. Is the company heading in the right direction with James Daunt? Is the new policy of store-level decision-making the key to turning around his fortunes? What are your thoughts? Comment below and tell us. We love hearing from you. That's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Please, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more interesting content on some of your favorite companies. And hit that bell icon so that you're notified every time we drop a fresh video. See you next time.